select.
The first thing you need to do when you're hooking up your GT10 is to define the output selection. That is what you're actually plugging your GT10 into. For example, I use a full range system, either powered speakers or in-ear monitoring, depending on the situation. So I generally utilize the line phone's output selection, which allows me to use the speaker simulations within the GT10. There's 8 separate voicings. The other 7 voicings all bypass the speaker simulations. So if you're using full range and you want to use the preamps and speakers within the GT10, you need to set it to line phones. Press the output selection button, and first of all you'll notice there's a mode. Okay, there's 2 separate modes. You've got system or patch. Now system is global. That means that whatever the output selection that you've made within the GT10's menu here affects every single patch within the GT10. Whereas if you change, basically use the up and down cursor buttons to select mode, highlight system. Now if I rotate the value wheel, I can set this to patch. This means that I can change the output selection for every single patch within the GT10. Now, it's rare that you will do that, but for instance, you might have a favorite preamp that you want to use in certain patches, and you may find that you want to basically use maybe a stack return or combo amp setting in the output selection because it may be voiced better for your particular amp. Now, it's a matter of experimenting here and seeing which ones actually sound right. Just because they're labeled stack amp or combo return doesn't mean they're going to be the best sounding output selection. So experiment. But basically, if you're selecting patch as your mode, you need to basically select, use the cursor down button, and just, for instance, might go into a JC120 return. Okay. Now, because I've selected that as my output selection, I have to write that to the patch, and just do that by hitting write twice, and you'll notice here that it's now written. Up the top of the screen here, you'll notice that it's given me a little symbol that looks like an amplifier. Okay, this is telling me at a glance that I'm using an amplifier output selection for that particular patch. Whereas if I change to, say, patch 2, okay, now I'll go into the output select, and let's just change that to line phones. Now I'll write. Okay, so now it's giving me the symbol of the headphones, which basically symbolizes or represents that it's a direct output selection. Okay, if I go back to patch number 1, you'll notice that the little symbol there has changed back to the amp symbol. So at a glance, I can see which patches are using amp voiced output selections, and then which patches are using direct. So, like I say, it's probably rare that you'll use that. I generally use line phones all the time. Even if I was to plug into an amplifier, I find that line phones is the cleanest sounding output selection for me. But, you know, you got to use what works for you. So, just to basically recap that, for me, I'll set it to system, line phones, and that gives me line phones for every single patch. I don't have to think about, you know, which patch is voiced with which output selection. It's all going to be direct.